crucifixions were not considered a sacrifice to the gods.
With
But taking somebody out from the altar of Mars, no. But what's interesting is gladiators were. The origin of the gladiatorial games was that those were originally death games that the Etruscans did. And the Romans got a lot of their culture from the Etruscans. And what would happen is when a wealthy person died, they would often send other people into the next world with them. This goes way back, and might be evidence of the bicameral mind. But that cameralism aside, back in the bicameral days, at least in theory, people would be happily walking voluntarily into the grave, and there's evidence of this at Ur. There was a good, I think it was James Woodward wrote a book about the excavations at Ur and talked about how these people apparently just walked right down there. There's no sign of struggle. Nobody just went down there, they drank their little cup of whatever they gave, and they just went and sit down and go into the next world with the king. Woohoo! Now, of course, there were very real, what we would consider socio-political implications to this. If the king dies and his court goes into the next world, that means the new king has a fresh court. You get rid of the old politicians, the old general, the old prime minister. They're needed in the next world, so you get to pick your own people, your own administration. But in Etruria, they've gotten past, I can't remember mine, but they were still sacrificing people. I mean, they did that in the Iliad there, where they were sacrificing, what was it, Achilles' grave, where they were killing the people on his grave as a blood offering. So,
well, the Egyptians used to kill people with the old dead people, but that was so that they would have servants in the next world, wasn't it?
Right. That's why the kings would take their wives and concubines and ministers, soldiers and cows and horses, because they wanted all that stuff in the next world. But by the time of Etruscan times, that wasn't such a big deal. But when somebody died, they would still like to send a slave with them. At the funeral, they would take 2 slaves and give them swords.
Right.
So one of you is going with master to the next life.
Right.
You two decide which. And it was no longer did you fall on your own sword to go. We had a different attitude towards things. So instead, they tried to kill each other, and whoever was killed was considered a sacrifice to the manes, the ghost. And so that slave was sent. So these became funeral games. And of course, with bad funeral games, you probably heard about. They would usually be athletic contests because the Greeks, they away from all that human sacrifice. But the Etruscans still had funeral games in which there was at least one fatality, and that person was sent to the next world. Now, the first huge gladiatorial games in Rome were held by Julius Caesar, and they were done in honor of the death of I believe it was his daughter, Drusilla. I'd have to look that up. I could have it wrong. But it was definitely for the death. It might have been his stepdaughter or something like that. So, and of course, that was the beginning, the huge, giant, spectator sport of gladiatorial fighting. But it really originated as a human sacrifice. And technically, when they were going out there, it was still using the same religious structure, although nobody was really aware of it anymore. Just like we say goodbye to someone, meaning God be with you. Well, they don't really know that that's what it is anymore. And I believe that most of the gladiators didn't realize that they were participating in an ancient Etruscan religious rite that the Romans had adapted. Because up to the time, they still did that. They would have slaves fight at the grave so that one would die. But Caesar was the first one to say, I'm going to have 36 pairs of gladiators going at it. And I just see his daughter like, where are all these guys coming from in the next world? Got like 36 servants now. Okay, thanks, Pop. So in that sense, the Romans were performing human sacrifice right in the Christian times. I don't think that I believe the Pope himself bet on gladiators up until the Arians came in, the ARAN, the followers of Arius came in, and I think it was the Vandals or one of them came over and conquered Rome, and they stopped the games. If nothing else, because a lot of the slaves that they sent into the games were captured Arian Christians from Northern Europe, and they're at it, well, they're heretics, what the hell. So, so, when the Romans were complaining about human sacrifice, when they had taken Brennus and sacrificed him as, they called it execution, but I mean, come on, it's on the Campus Marius. You're right out there on the field of Mars. It's part of a military parade. It obviously is religious in origin. And of course, even the Greeks, even in later times, if you read, was it Thucydides mentions it? I think Herodotus mentions it too. But there was one point where during the war with the Persians, some of the Greeks had captured some Persian prisoners, including 2 who were noble, a young man and woman who were like of the royal house. And the Greeks were all going, well, we can ransom them. We've got important prisoners. But the priest who was there said, oh, the sacrificial fire is turning towards them. We must sacrifice them to Bacchus Omages, the all-devouring Bacchus, which is a very interesting title. We don't know a lot about this. We do know that Bacchus was an underworld deity. In fact, you can argue that Bacchus, the god of wine, was the same as Pluto, the underworld god, Hades. Mm-hmm. And of course, we still to this day have folklore about that the roots of the grapevines reach down to hell, to Hades, and that is where it draws its potency into the grapes to make wine from. That's what I'm trying to say is when they say that the Celts were like burning people in giant wicker men, A, it's dramatic, but I don't think it would work very well unless the wicker man was lying down. And B, I think any account of Celtic human sacrifice by the Romans, and that's the only source we have, is going to be extremely exaggerated. Because again, they did carry on for a long time a war against Druidism as a religion and extirpated it wherever possible. It was illegal to be a Druid in Roman territories. And but they saw Druidism as the center of the center of resistance to rule and occupation. The fact that they were Druids and that the people followed the Druids, the religious advisors, was they considered that the center of resistance. And that's one of the reasons why they attacked the Isle of Mona. You can look up accounts of it. The Roman account is very interesting. When they got there were women dressed in black like the Furies running up and down with waving torches, and Druids holding their hands up to the sky, invoking, all these things. And there was like all Celtic warriors drawn up on the beach. They said the Romans were scared shitless. Well, you come out of the mist and there's this like really scary mythological thing, but then some really hard-headed drunk Roman centurion just jumped up on the beach and said, come on, chop them up. And they just cleared the island. Again, very, very rare for the Romans to attack religious, religious structures and organizations like that. Again, the only other time they did it was Christianity.
As I recall from medieval bestiaries that I used to read as a kid, the unicorn's purity was actually a symbol of Christ. At least in certain medieval traditions. So it's very odd, but perhaps not so odd. They would pick that kind of an image. But I remember something, G.K. Chesterton wrote a wonderful book called The Ball and the Cross. I don't know if you ever read it, but
I'm aware of G.K. Chesterton. I'm not aware of that work. So
it's a fascinating little work, and it predicts a lot of what's happening today, including a tyranny based on medical diagnosis. The idea that if we make everybody else, we define everybody else as crazy and us as sane, then they'll be forced to do what we say. We will lock them all up in an asylum, and the asylum is turned inside out kind of deal. When you come into it, you're actually on the outside, according to them. But there was an interesting point in it where it was all about this argument between this militant atheist and this militant Catholic. And one of the things about the atheist was he had this shop where he published this atheist paper, and it says there was no God, and this was a myth from ancient Egypt, and and all these arguments, and everyone's just ignoring him. Nobody cares until he runs into this one Catholic who sees this and says, that's utter blasphemy, and smashes his window, and he's finally found someone who takes him seriously. So the two of them are actually become friends all through the book, because they're the only two people that, and at one point he says to the atheist, if you really didn't believe in God, why would you care? Why would you care about people going to church? Why would you care about people believing anything they want? I believe some pretty odd things myself. Who am I? Why am I so enraged? But it's a fascinating book. I recommend just about anything. Chesterton wrote a wonderful book of essays called Orthodoxy, which I recommend.
I've really glanced at Orthodoxies,
Yeah, that's a really good book. Heretic and Orthodoxy. Yes.
I didn't mean to completely blow off what you were saying. I do believe that too. There are that's just an isolated situation with myself and those so-called people. But I do take that stance with other people. For example, I've been in places. You ever go to jail for a traffic ticket? I have, because I'm not giving the government money. Yeah, I'll take a vacation. But so there would be like hardcore racist dudes, like hardcore white supremacists. My bunkmate was a hardcore white supremacist, and to tattoos and Nazi stuff everywhere. After the end of our first day, I was underneath his protection. Nobody could mess with me because we talked about Dragon Ball Z, comic books. Like, God, we have so much in common. You're really cool for a black guy. I'm like, well, you're really cool for a white guy. He would give me his soups and everything. We just talk all day long. So I do understand that, you know, not having enemies and try to have. I don't even like to have.
On a one-by-one basis, you know, is what sounds like then that's the best way to go, you know, is judge each person individually how they treat you. Doesn't mean that you can't have realistic ideas about larger social questions, but it's always the human element, at least for me. I'm an individualist. That always has to come first. So, you know, one of the problems with government, and you've been talking a lot about government, is like government does this, government does that. It doesn't. Individuals do things. And they might try to cloak themselves with, well, I'm just a member of this committee, or I'm just following orders, or this or that. But it's like individual people making individual decisions, even if they deny they're making those decisions. And, you know, as we're taught, you are the result of your actions. You're defined by your actions. You're the heir of your actions. Everything you do for good or for evil will come home to roost. And people try to escape it by saying, well, I can do this to this guy, and I can push this button and use this psychotronic weapon because, you know, it's not me. Somebody else would push it anyway. And so I can understand where you would have animus toward individuals that have harmed you, and that's perfectly understandable. But I also know that you're going to be judging every person you meet. You don't care if he's got a 1488 tattoo, if he's a nice guy. You know, I've met guys like that too. Actually, that reminds me of something. I was working at a summer camp. Oh God, this was back in like 1987. And we had like teams of camp counselors. It'd be like a supervisor and like 3 counselors per cabin, and then 2 floating counselors. And we had a lot of older, mentally disabled people. And our cabin leader was a black guy. And we were taking care of this, and he and I used to hang out a lot. And this guy, we were taking care of this older, like in his late 60s, early 70s, black developmentally disabled guy. And he was a really nice guy. Finally, we're sitting around joking. He goes to my cabin leader. He goes, "How come you're hanging out with this white guy all the time?" And then he just looks at him and says, "Well, he's pretty nice for a white guy." And it's like, yeah, that was pretty cool, actually. We all had a good laugh, but it was yeah, you got to take people as they come, I think.
Okay, I've been listening to, at nighttime when I go to sleep, I listen to these what-if stories, you know, multi-universe crossovers. So the recent one I listened to was about Metro Man going into the Boys universe. Metro Man from Megamind. And so he shows up in the Boys universe where he has to deal with Homelander and the Seven. He basically punks them out, makes them irrelevant, and basically society said, screw this, we want our structure back. And they started rebuilding the system that he destroyed to free them. And AI is telling you, no, you can't get away from structure.
Well, I think a church is, and I actually like a lot of Dr. Edward Dutton's ideas on this. He's a fascinating chap. But a church is a physical manifestation. I mean, there's also, it is understood that there's, and again, my knowledge of this is limited, so I'm not saying this is perfect understanding, but there are 2 churches. There is the spiritual church, which actually exists on a spiritual level, and then there is the physical church made up of physical, limited human beings, and it's going to be physically unlimited, including morally and, you know, in every other aspect.
No gods! Whisper softly tonight! open wide. Through the darkness, cross the tide. Waters of death beneath your feet. Immortality tastes like
A church, I think, is an expression of the religious impulse through the culture. And in the best case scenario, it grows with the culture. And we talk a lot about, religion shaping people, but people also shape their religion. And I don't want to bring them up too much, but Chesterton pointed out with the conversion of Europe from paganism to Christianity, it wasn't all them going and burning down pagan temples and chopping people's heads off. There was a bit of that. What's his name that chopped off all those Saxons' heads after he baptized them? The fact is, he would have chopped their heads off whether he baptized them or not. He was a genocidal maniac. But there were a lot of pagans who were looking for something more satisfying spiritually, and I've talked about this before. That's why there were a lot of people turning to things like the cult of the Isaiah mysteries, by which I mean the goddess Isis, not the prophet Isaiah, and turning to Mithraism and other mystery religions. And as I was said before, with the church today, one of the issues has to do with the fact that it became the official Roman state religion that was used as a political instrument and a cultural instrument of domination and control. But that didn't explain the spiritual turn. If you read the Hermetic texts, they talk about, this was like late antiquity, the pagan priests were saying, our time is over, there is a new religion coming, and everything passes away, a new age is on the way. So there was also a willingness to turn to something new. And but when the state gets involved, and the state is no longer really an outgrowth of the people, when you read Aristotle, which I do a lot, when he talks about government, he's talking about what we would say the entire society. They didn't see any difference between a religious, a governmental, and a social kind of an event. And as I pointed out too, sacrifice in the ancient world meant feeding people. They would do this annual sacrifice to dedicate something about keeping the gates of Rome, the borders all secure with their magic and their religion. So they would have sacrifice dozens and dozens of bullocks, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sheep and hundreds of goats. Basically, they fed the entire city on that day, because they would have the sacrifice, and then the priest would there, and he cut off the best cut for the priest, of course, the priest cut, and then he would just chop up the carcass, and everybody would get a chunk of meat. Poor people back then didn't often have access to this sort of thing except through these sacrifices. So this was also a social function. So getting back to what Roger was saying, the inner spiritual connection that we all make, for most people, it has to be mediated through something they understand through their culture and something that grows with their culture. And that's why it can always be, sometimes it can be, not always, but it can sometimes be problematic trying to get back to what they call fundamentalism sometimes. Because fundamentalism often doesn't take into account the changing culture.
You know, there's temptation everywhere. It's that even in the walls of church, there's temptations.
Yeah.
But if you say that you're fine living on your own, worshiping God on your own, there's temptations being alone as well, isn't there?
There's 2 points that I'm thinking of at the moment. First of all, we've all heard of stories about people being overly institutionalized. As an example, somebody goes to prison at an early age and then decides to, when they came out, decide to commit crimes to go back into prison. Also the concept of being taught in a state educational system and then joining the army and joining, let's say, the police force or joining another state institution and never actually seeing anything beyond that. And also, this also raises the question of the sort of communist Marxist idea of the state being the religion.
Well, that's not too far from how a lot of societies have been arranged, where the religion, like I was saying, the culture, the religion, the society, the government were all more or less one thing. And even as these things separated out, go to the Elizabethans. And hello, Minds Gaming. I was just about to talk about the Elizabethans, and they used the Church of England at that time as a way to disseminate whatever opinion the crown wanted. Elizabeth would authorize sermons, and that Sunday sermon was one of their main sources of news and information. So, if it was decided that we didn't like Spain, you'd have nothing about the perfidious Spanish being talked about in the sermons, or this or that heresy or something. So the idea of state control through religion, and I mean in Russia today, as I understand it, the Orthodox Church and the state work very closely hand in hand. This is seen as a normal exercise, I think, on the part of most European governments. Hello, Minds Gaming.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
So glad you made it. We're talking about spiritual and religious things today.
Spiritual, fun.
Do you know everybody here? Have you met everybody here?
I think I have once before. I'm not too familiar with the Thai Tran. So hi, Tran. How are you? Mike.
So what's going on? What you been doing?
Work, man. I tried to take this week off to be called in every day this week. But it's fun.
Oh, you're an essential worker.
yeah, right. Yeah. So I'm trying to take some days off next week instead. But it's been stressful. Yeah. I think everybody can be essential in some ways.
We were all talking about our projects and what we've been up to, and I was trying to describe to Tan about the structure of the traditional show, before the interregnum of Bob being in South Africa. So, do you want to talk a little bit about your projects and the spiritual aspects of them at all, a little bit?
Let me listen in, and then I'll hop in.
But everybody's already gone.
Everybody's already gone.
If Minds Gaming is doing anything with Satori D, I think it's very spiritual, isn't it? Stuff that they're doing.
Well, Story D's on his own little adventure right now. He's doing a bunch of things. I'm too busy to keep up with him. He's way out of my league. Trust me.
He's working with some of the top guys in his field, which is, I'm very excited for him because working with these guys for him is, I think, not a lot of people have heard of Are You Serious? I've heard of him, but I think it's cool that he's had this door open for him. But Mike, you've had some doors open too. We were talking before about the story arcs that you've written having to do with your wonderful fiction on Wattpad. The story of Ember or Embers and stuff like that. So how's the Embers saga going? And have you got any other multimedia outlets for that you're thinking of?
Well, right now I want to get it on hardback. That's my next project for that. But I gotta finish the second book first, and then I'll get both of them because it's cheaper to get them both at once than to do them separately. So,
right.
And I'm a poor person. But yeah, I'm gonna try to do that next. But it's really interesting because right now I'm working. My contract is with a bookstore, and so I'm meeting all these really interesting people that have connections that I could only dream of, with books and printing and distribution and all this kind of stuff, and learning a bunch about that kind of stuff, and trying to keep up with it a lot. And it's a lot more complicated than I thought it was, for sure. It's easy to get your book printed, I guess. Anyone can do that now. You could go to Barnes and Noble and get your book printed, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't have distributors and people contacts to read your book and stuff like that.
Right.
They watch the sun in silence, track the tremor in the sky, measured storms before they formed, mapped the fire passing by. High above the desert air, dishes listening through the night. Mirrors carved from mountain stone, drinking in the light. Then one by one the signals dim, not by thunder, not by flame, but closures written in reports and systems stripped of name. It's glimpsed of quiet, the mountains hold their breath, stealing glass and frequency, standing still in death. Are they sleeping or evolving out of sight? When the watchers lose their windows, who is watching live?
Evacuation structural failure. Cyber intrusion hazard containment. Decommission scheduled. Observation suspended.
A cable snaps in ocean wind, a dish falls into dust, a summit shuts for safety, a network breaks its trust. Pandemic skies fall empty, remote control goes dark. 48 days, science sleeps inside galaxies, not just distant flame, but grids and clocks and satellites connected all the same. Warning, warring, signal tracing, magnet fields in fluctuation, orbit paths and probability. Open science, strategic infrastructure, shared data, restricted access. Mirrors dismantled, networks restored, systems upgraded, silently secured, old observatories fading, new rays concealed, the sky is still unfolding, but who controls the field? The instruments go quiet, but the sun is never still. Electromagnetic rivers move beyond our will. Are we closing doors or building stronger sight? When the watchers shift their vantage, does the dark grow loud? Steel against the skyline, empty domes at dawn. The universe keeps speaking, even when we're gone. Observation never ends.
So, that's the main thing. So if you want to get it like really on a hard, if I want to get it really on hardback and like with a reading base, it's a little different than just getting it printed. So it's very fun for me to try to discover and stuff. So I've been trying to talk to people there. The English teacher there for creative writing really loves my book, so I'm trying to get him to help me out.
You know, if you want some nice blurbs for the back cover, if you can do such a thing when you're getting ready to publish it, I can send a pre-publication copy to my brother, who's a full professor at a major Oriental university, and I bet he would love the book, and I'm sure he'd write up a nice blurb for you if you think that would help market the book at all.
Yeah, I didn't even know. I wouldn't even have known what that was like a month ago. But yeah, that'd be great.
He might even send it to a couple of his other academic friends and stuff. But it doesn't hurt to have like Professor so and so.
Oh no, not at all. Yeah, that's a big thing there, and especially like that's the creative writing teacher was talking to me about that, and he was like, "Yeah, you should get a couple people to write, things about your book and how it's how it could help and stuff like that." He was like, "I could do one, but give me like a couple months because I have to." He just started his semester's just started, so he's like, "I don't have time to do this right now, but I'm gonna try." So,
Donnie's a full professor of English at Showa Women's University, which is like the oldest women's university in Japan.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So that ought to look good on the back of your book. So we'll stay in the loop and we'll get that to him.
Yeah.
So Otto, you're not the headmaster of Hogwarts? That's your brother.
He's just a professor, and he's looking forward to retirement. He's retiring in a few years and coming back to the States. But I don't know. I always thought I'd be a good teacher, but I never had the chance.
I'm surprised you're not a professor yourself.
I profess things, but I don't know how much of a professor I am.
You're a confessor.
That too.
There you go.
That sounds really cool, though, Mike. I'm really looking forward to being able to have a nice hard copy of that on my shelf.
Oh yeah, and
Send gifts to all my friends.
Yes, yes. I'll have to give a couple away to people I know just for fun, because I've been looking at it, and it's like the minimum you can get printed at a time is like 15 from the people that I've been talking to, and it's like, okay, well, that's not too bad. I'll have to give away like 10 of them.
I have a really nice inscription for Bob's copy, something really sweet. You'll love that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, Bob will get one for sure. I'll email. I'll Amazon it over to. Not overnight, because it's very expensive.
I know, right? I'm in the wrong business, I tell you, when I see some of these shipping rates.
Oh yeah, for sure. We've been having this huge thing, which is why I've been in all week with one of these distributors that has this really popular book that. Like, it's a required course for all the students there, and the book is For the Pain of Others, and
I'll be back, kids.
Yeah, sure. And so this book that's required has lost 3,000 copies in the like course. Yeah. so like all these 3,000 rented copies that have never been returned. So I had to get a copy and try to read it. It's
I saw some of your physics posts there on Element, and I'm like, I got to tell you, I get to certain points, especially with the math, and it just all gets a little fuzzy for me. So I just have to rely on your conclusions at the end of the.
Math is math.
For this, and I'm like, okay, whatever you say, Mike.
The maths and the maths, they're all math. It's all, you gotta triple and double check that kind of stuff. It was one of my better courses, but that's pretty advanced math. So.
I tell you, I tried to plug one of your AI breaking scripts into Grok to see what it would do. And it said, I can't do this. This is trying to break me. And so when he's sneaky, he says this, and this is going to make me think this, and it's going to make me think that. And I'm like, oh, okay.
That's great.
You want something with fewer guardrails is what you want. And I'm like, oh, all right, good.
Yeah, Grok has been in the news a lot lately.
Oh, yeah.
Really? What was Grok been doing?
You want to go into it?
Well, Grok and Gemini have actually been in it a lot, and the big one right now is Gemini because of Apple, and Apple is actually paying Gemini to use their AI right now, and so Grok is trying to get into that with Apple because Gemini is a competitor of Apple, and then. So Grok isn't a direct competitor, so they're trying to get in under Gemini, and mostly right now it's the battle of who's more liked, and I think that's why Apple's trying to go with Gemini, because Gemini is a lot more popular right now, and it's just a lot of people are liking its creativity more right now, I think.
Really?
Huh. Yeah. And then Copilot's like fell down like huge amounts. It's ridiculous to just see how the
Copilot
activity.
is annoying.
It's a
See, look at that.
It's all in my browser on these Windows 11. So I just installed Windows 11 to one of my Windows to Go drives, and I'm not impressed. The AI and everything, it's just annoying. Like if I have a question, I'll ask you.
Stop looking at me.
Yeah.
There's a wider issue with Copilot in relation to potential unfair business practices on privacy concerns. As far as Grok's concerned, especially from a British point of view, is the current big bikini scandal and the current UK government wanting to, using Grok and as an excuse to try and ban Twitter or X from the UK.
Wow, entirely? Just ban the whole platform?
Yeah.
Can they do that? Minnesota.
I think if the government wants to track you, VPN's not going to help you that much. Just
I've always said that, especially with my scuffles with the NSA. Yeah, they know where you are.
Oh yeah, they don't care.
My whole thing is, if you got this whole thing going on to track me, I have to have a real ID. I have to have an email to log into a library computer. If you're gonna do all this stuff, send me some equipment.
Send me some equipment. Like, at least make me look cool.
Pay for my phone.
Money you're making off of me, you know?
Pay for my computer.
Also, I always go back to this sort of terms of service agreement. And a lot of users agree to having the data.
The end user, yes.
Really, a lot of responsibility has to be put on the end user.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times we refuse to read.
People I would say read.
It's funny. Like, what's the like? I was thinking about that with the Toyota thing, and I was like, I wonder if that's somewhere in there where they signed when they bought that car. You know, like, is that possible? Like, I don't know. Like, half the people don't read all those contracts.
Well, actually, that kind of ties into what we're talking about. Now, I want to branch this off in two different directions. Signing your soul away, is that not a spiritual act? And also, can we program some spirituality in some of these damn AIs?
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Well, first, don't sign your soul away. I'm very against that.
Like you said, we've signed over a
Have a cup of tea,
things that we've never read.
Yeah. I get where you're coming from for sure. Like, I could only think of back when I was in like I was just getting out of like high school, and I remember this big like online thing where this guy was literally just collecting signatures for people's souls as like a joke, and it was like it was this big thing that like was like hit the newspapers and all these things, and like I think it was because I was still like following church that I heard about it. It's probably the only real reason. And he was just like,
opening. The chronicle begins. Here now, wanderers of the void, a tale older than the dust of dying suns, a saga whispered by star priests, etched in the rings of forgotten planets. The myth of the three brothers. Scene 1. The River of Unmaking. In the age before ages, the brothers journeyed across the celestial expanse. They came upon the River of Unmaking, a cosmic torrent that devoured ships, souls, and poorly written destiny arcs.
A river that erases existence? Bah, I thought vending machines more dangerous.
Look at it, swirling like the universe's drainpipe of doom. I love it.
Let's cross before one of you tries to bottle it.
With their arcane tech, they forged a bridge of crystallized starlight, and the cosmos shuddered, for they had cheated the oldest law. Thunderous cosmic sigh echoes.
Oh, stars above, I leave for 1 millennium long lunch break, and someone rewrites physics.
Scene 2. The pale administrator arrives.
Brothers of the mortal coil, you have crossed the river of unmaking. Tradition demands our rewards such audacity. Tradition also demands paperwork. Lots of paperwork.
Grant me a weapon worthy of legend, blade or beam that bends galaxies to my will.
Give me the power to call back the soul I lost. Preferably one who won't file a complaint this time.
I ask only for the freedom to walk unseen by you, O Pale One.
Wonderful. One wants conquest, one wants necromancy, and the other wants to unsubscribe from my newsletter.
Scene 3. The Gifts of Fate. The first brother's gift.
To you, eldest, I bestow the Elder Star Lance. Forged from the spine of a collapsed sun, it will pierce anything, matter, antimatter, even fragile egos.
I shall name it the Beam of Destiny.
Don't. Please don't.
The second brother's gift.
To you, seeker of echoes, I grant the stone of returning voices. Turn it thrice, and a soul shall answer your call.
Finally, a chance to fix my romantic catastrophes.
It summons spirits, not relationship counselors.
The third brother's gift.
And to you, the youngest, take this cloak. The cloak of veiled realms, woven from the shadows between dimensions. It hides you from everyone, even myself.
I accept with gratitude.
You're the only one who ever says that.
Scene 4. The Fates Written in the Stars. The first brother. The Warrior's Folly. The eldest sought glory in the star halls of Titanus 9. He boasted of his star lance, challenged all who breathed.
Behold, the Beam of Destiny. Fear me, mortals.
He was struck down by a jealous rival who preferred quieter weapons.
Because of death, hubris, and naming your weapon is something ridiculous. You really shouldn't sleep that much.
The second brother, the Echo's Lament. The second brother turned the stone thrice. A shimmering figure emerged, the one he had loved. Romus, you dragged me from eternal peace. I had a hammock and snacks. I can fix this. Whoops. Splash.
Because of death, emotional turbulence, near cosmic hazards.
The third brother, the wise voyager. The youngest wandered the galaxies unseen, slipping between realms like a whisper. He lived long, learned much, and troubled no one. When his time grew near, he removed the cloak and awaited the pale administrator.
You lasted longer than most. Well played.
I greet you as an old friend.
Then let us walk together, not as hunter and hunted, but just once as equals.
Closing. The legend endures. Thus ends the star myth of the three brothers, one who sought dominion, one who sought the past, and one who sought wisdom. Their tale echoes across nebulae and night skies, a reminder that even in a universe of infinite wonders, the greatest power is knowing when to walk gently. The end.
End scene.
That was pretty good.
Mike, that was a very penetrating script.
Welcome to the Thorns Gathering.